It was just after sunset when the golden lights of Kensington Palace flickered across the courtyard. But inside there was no peace. Behind those elegant doors, something had happened. Something so deeply personal that even the palace walls couldn't contain the heartbreak. Witnesses spoke of silence first, then of tears. And when Prince William and Catherine stepped out into the cold London air, their faces said everything no royal statement ever could. What secret could shake the future king and queen so deeply? What truth could turn the world's most graceful couple into two silent souls walking away from their own home? Tonight, we uncover the revelation that brought tears to Kensington Palace. Before we dive into this emotional royal story, make sure you're part of our growing community of truth seekers and storytellers. Hit subscribe, tap the like button, and share this video with someone who still believes the royals have hearts as human as ours. All right, let's step inside the palace gates and discover what really happened that night at Kensington. The night began like any other at Kensington Palace. Outside, London's evening rain had softened the city, wrapping it in that familiar silver haze. Inside, the palace glowed, chandeliers humming with light, soft laughter echoing from the hallway, and the scent of old roses drifting through open doors. But beneath that calm, something felt different. There was a kind of stillness, not peaceful, but heavy. Even the staff sensed it. Conversations were shorter, footsteps quieter, and somewhere deep in the West Wing, behind the closed doors of apartment 1A, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge sat in silence. Kate's teacup rested untouched. William stood by the window, looking out toward the gardens his mother once loved so much. The rain blurred the lights of London like tears tracing down glass. No one outside that room could envy guessed, but something deeply personal had just been placed in William's hands. A letter. It had been discovered earlier that day, hidden behind a drawer in an old wooden chest belonging to Princess Diana. A chest long stored away, only recently brought back for the palace's private collection project. The envelope was fragile, the ink slightly faded, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Diana's. At first, William thought it might be another one of her old notes, something nostalgic. But the moment he opened it, the air seemed to shift. "William, my darling boy," it began. The handwriting wavered, as if written in a rush. It wasn't just a mother's message, it was a confession. For years, the world believed Diana's story had been told in full. Every heartbreak, every secret laid bare. But not this one. This letter spoke of something personal, something that might change how the public saw the monarchy, and how William saw his own role in it. Kate watched him read. She didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. The silence said enough. He read the page once, then again, slower, his hand tightening around the edges. Finally, he whispered. She knew. Kate's voice was soft. Knew what? William turned the letter toward her. Everything. That's when the tension broke.
It's hard to imagine what it must feel like to have your mother's words reach you decades after her passing, especially when those words hold truths no one was ever supposed to read. And yet, here they were, in the very palace she once walked through, where her sons grew up, now echoing with her unfinished story. The discovery was meant to be private, but within hours, word had spread through the small circle of royal aides. The phrase Diana's final letter whispered like wildfire through the corridors of Kensington. By evening, William's expression had changed from disbelief to grief, and finally to resolve. He told Kate he needed a moment alone, but she refused to leave him. "I'm not letting you face this by yourself," she said. Those who know Kate describe her as calm under pressure, composed to a fault. But that night, even she couldn't hold back the tears. By 9 o'clock, the palace lights had dimmed. Aides had been dismissed. The royal couple sat together, side by side, under the portrait of Diana that hung in their private hall. "She always said the truth would come out," Kate murmured. William nodded slowly. "Yes, but I never thought it would hurt like this." The clock struck 10. Outside, the rain stopped. Inside, history shifted, quietly, like a chapter turning in a book no one meant to open. Then came the decision that stunned the palace. William stood, took Kate's hand, and said only one sentence. "Let's go." And with that, they walked out, not as royals bound by duty, but as two people overwhelmed by love, loss, and the unbearable weight of truth. As the gates of Kensington Palace opened, a few security guards exchanged glances. No statements were given, no orders left behind. The couple slipped into the black SUV waiting at the drive, the taillights glowing red through the fog. Inside the car, silence lingered. Kate's hand rested over his. No words, just the quiet understanding that some moments are too sacred to explain. Back at the palace, their departure rippled through every corridor. The press hadn't yet caught on, but the staff knew something extraordinary had occurred. It wasn't a royal argument. It wasn't a scandal. It was something deeper, human. And maybe that's what makes this story so haunting. Because beyond the crowns, beyond the cameras and titles, the royals are still a family. Families keep secrets. Families break. And sometimes, they cry behind closed doors, just like anyone else. That night at Kensington wasn't about politics or power. It was about legacy. About a son discovering a truth his mother left behind, and a wife who refused to let him face it alone. When they returned the next morning, the world still knew nothing. The official schedules remained unchanged, the smiles perfectly practiced. But those who saw them said something in their eyes had shifted. Softer, heavier, but closer too. And maybe that's what love looks like in the palace. Not the fairy tale kind you read about, but the quiet, tear-streaked, handheld kind that survives even the hardest revelations.
By the next morning, the pale light of dawn crept across Kensington Palace. The air was crisp, the kind that usually carries calm, but not that day. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy. Staff moved carefully, avoiding eye contact, as if everyone somehow knew something extraordinary had unfolded the night before. William and Kate had returned just before sunrise. They hadn't spoken much, but their silence carried more weight than any royal announcement could. Kate's eyes were tired, William's shoulders tense, and in his hand, the same fragile letter, the one that had changed everything. When the story of Diana is told, it often ends the same way: tragedy, loss, and the world's sympathy frozen in time. But few realize how much she still speaks through the traces she left behind. Letters, journals, tapes, pieces of a voice that refused to disappear. This particular letter, though, was different. It wasn't about scandal or secrets. It was about truths never shared, about trust and betrayal, buried deep within the royal system itself. In it, Diana hinted at something that had haunted her until the very end. She wrote about a conversation she overheard, a plan she never fully understood, and a fear she carried for her son's future. "I pray my boys will never have to face the same woes I did," she wrote. "They deserve hearts that are free, even if the crown will never let them be." For William, those words weren't just emotional. They were explosive. They confirmed what he had always suspected, that his mother knew more than she ever revealed publicly. And now, with this letter in his hands, the past wasn't just painful, it was unfinished. Kate sat beside him in their private lounge, her expression calm but her heart breaking. She reached for his hand. "You don't have to carry this alone," she said softly. He shook his head. "But it's mine to understand." Those words, quiet but final, captured everything about William that night. The prince who would be king, yet still the boy who lost his mother too soon. By midday, word reached Windsor. Senior aide from both palaces was summoned. The letter had to be reviewed, catalogued, and handled properly. But William refused to hand it over. "Not yet. This isn't an artifact," he said firmly. "It's her heart." No one argued. Even in the royal system, some moments demand silence. Later that afternoon, William called his brother. Harry had been thousands of miles away, living a very different kind of royal life. But some bonds run deeper than distance. "Harry," William said over the phone, his voice unsteady, "I found something. From Mum." There was a pause, long, raw, heavy with emotion. "What do you mean, found?" William explained everything. The chest, the letter, the words. Harry didn't interrupt. For a while, there was only quiet. Then, softly, she always knew how to reach us. Even now, that one sentence cut through the noise. Both brothers felt it, that invisible thread between past and present, between mother and sons. That evening, Kate suggested something William hadn't expected. "Maybe you don't need to keep this secret," she said gently. "Maybe it's meant to be shared." He hesitated. "Shared? With who?" "With the world," she whispered. "With those who still love her." The thought lingered. Could he? Should he? To release his mother's final words would mean inviting a storm, media frenzy, public tears, political discomfort. But to hide it would mean betraying the one thing she'd wanted most: truth. As night settled again over Kensington, William walked alone through the courtyard. The air was cool, damp from another passing rain. He stopped near the garden, the same spot where, years earlier, he and Harry had unveiled the statue of their mother. He remembered her laughter, the warmth of her hugs, the way she once told him, "Always be kind, even when kindness costs you." And suddenly he understood. This letter wasn't a burden. It was a message, not to destroy, but to heal. He returned to their private quarters and found Kate waiting by the window, gazing out over the gardens. She turned as he entered, her eyes searching his face. He smiled faintly, tired, but certain. "I think I know what to do." "What?" she asked. He held up the letter. "We'll let her speak." Kate nodded, tears welling. "Then we'll do it together." The following morning, a quiet meeting was held between William, Kate, and a small trusted team. The goal wasn't publicity, it was preservation. They decided to digitize the letter, secure it privately, and prepare a public statement that honored Diana's voice without exposing sensitive details. But before that could happen, the palace walls stirred again. An aide from Windsor, one known for loyalty to the Queen's old circle, had leaked word of the discovery. Within hours, reporters were gathering near the gates of Kensington, questions flying, cameras flashing. "Is it true?" one shouted. "Has Prince William found a final letter from Diana? Will it be made public?" Security tried to control the chaos, but it was too late. The story was out. Inside, William and Kate watched the live news feed in silence. The world now knew. But for once, William didn't look angry, only resolved. He turned to Kate and said, quietly but firmly, "Then let them know the truth. All of it." And for the first time in decades, a royal revelation wasn't about scandal or division. It was about closure. A mother's words, lost to time, had found their way home. When the official statement was released that evening, it was simple and dignified. A personal letter written by the late Princess Diana has been discovered among her private effects. Its contents are deeply personal and will remain within the family. Her words serve as a reminder of her enduring love for her sons and her faith in kindness and truth. That was all it said. But the message was clear. The royals had been reminded that behind every crown lies a beating heart. And for William and Kate, that night, tears once again found their way to the surface. Not of pain this time, but of peace. The storm outside Kensington Palace had passed, but inside, emotions still lingered like fog over the gardens. In the days after the revelation, the world's eyes turned once more toward Prince William and Princess Catherine, not for scandal this time, but for something deeper, something profoundly human. Reporters camped outside the gates. Commentators filled hours of airtime with speculation. But behind those walls, life slowed to something quiet, almost sacred. Kate had taken to spending long mornings near the nursery, watching their children play. William often stood by the window of their private sitting room, staring into the gardens where his mother's statue stood, a silent guardian of the truth she left behind. You see, grief is a strange thing. It doesn't end when the tears stop. It changes shape. For William, that letter had reopened an old wound, but it also gave him something he didn't know he needed: understanding. His mother hadn't just been a symbol to the world. She had been a woman, frightened, loving, and fiercely protective. And in her final words, she hadn't left pain. She'd left purpose. Kate saw it too. She saw how the burden in his shoulders began to lift, little by little, replaced by quiet strength. "Your mother would be proud," she told him one morning. He looked up, half smiling. "I hope so. Maybe now I can be proud of how I carry her." Days turned into weeks, and the royal family, usually known for silence, began to change its tone. Kensington released more of Diana's archived letters, photographs, and unseen notes, this time framed not as history, but as heritage. For the first time, the royal household spoke openly about emotional legacy, about healing, about how even the monarchy must learn to confront its humanity. It wasn't about rebellion. It was about remembrance. And people felt it. Letters from around the world began pouring in, messages from ordinary mothers, sons, and daughters who said Diana's words still gave them strength. A woman from Canada wrote, "It feels like she's still teaching us how to love, even from heaven." Another from South Africa said, "Your mother's courage gave me the power to leave an unhappy life and start again." William read them all, every single one. Then came the evening that would close this chapter, the anniversary of Diana's passing. Kensington Gardens glowed softly with candlelight. Hundreds gathered quietly, their faces reflecting the flicker of small flames. There were no paparazzi, no microphones, just a sea of humanity standing in silence for a woman who touched millions. William and Kate stood side by side, hands intertwined. Their children stood with them, George, Charlotte, and Louis, each holding a small white flower. As the choir began to hum, "Guide me, O thou great Redeemer," William looked toward the sky. He didn't cry this time, but his eyes glistened with a kind of emotion words can't quite describe. Kate whispered, "She's here, isn't she?" He nodded. "Always." For those who were there that night, it was as if time itself paused. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They simply felt. When the ceremony ended, William and Kate did something unexpected, something the palace hadn't planned. They walked down from the platform and began greeting people one by one. A little girl, no older than 8, handed Kate a hand-drawn picture of Diana surrounded by stars. "She's my angel, too," the girl said. Kate knelt down, smiled gently, and whispered, "She still is, sweetheart, for all of us." Later, as a couple walked back through the courtyard, the palace loomed behind them, not cold, not distant, but alive. Alive with memories, love, and the quiet resilience of a family that had faced truth and chosen compassion over pride. William stopped for a moment, looking back at the glowing windows. "You know," he said softly, "I used to think walking out of Kensington that night was the hardest thing I'd ever done." Kate tilted her head. "And now," he smiled, "now I think it was the beginning of finally walking back in, as myself." And maybe that's a lesson in all of this, that even in palaces built of stone and tradition, the truest strength is tenderness, that every royal, beneath the titles and the formality, carries a heart that beats like yours, like mine. The letter didn't divide them. It brought them closer. It didn't expose weakness. It revealed truth. And on that quiet night in Kensington, as the candle slowly faded, one thing became clear. Love had never truly left the palace. Sometimes, the stories we hear about royalty sound distant, like fairy tales behind velvet ropes. But nights like this remind us that the crown doesn't shield anyone from heartbreak or from hope. What did you feel hearing this story tonight? Do you believe Diana's legacy still guides her sons, and maybe, just maybe, helps them love more deeply because of what she endured? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes that even inside the grandest palaces, humanity always finds a way to shine through. Thank you for watching, and until next time, remember, every royal story is really just a human one, wearing a crown of truth. Crown.